Hey, good afternoon, friends. Today, my friends, is Wednesday, September the 10th, 2025, and the time now is 2:43 p.m. So, friends, I want to talk about Donald Trump, and I want to talk specifically about two things. One being that Donald Trump is having a very interesting week, or has been having a very, very interesting time. Or perhaps we can even say that he has been having about two interesting weeks right now. Also, I want to talk specifically about the current escalation between Donald Trump, United States, and Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. So we saw recently the United States sent about 8 naval vessels towards Venezuela and even added more vessels to that. The United States also did assassinated some people, okay, along the Venezuelan water, basically with the claim that these people in a specific boat were terrorists, they were drug smugglers. I want to talk about the implication of this, the fact that the United States and Western countries continue to violate international laws and getting away with it. Friends, in terms of Donald Trump having interesting weeks, for the entirety of August, I was unable to make videos, edit videos, or post videos. Now, you have a situation where we came into September. Donald Trump was sick, and as a result, he was out of the picture for a while, for about a week, to the point where many were asking, where is Donald Trump? There was speculation that Donald Trump is dying or that Donald Trump was very sick. We saw one particular picture, a photo that was released of a man who looked like Donald Trump, but also looked very interesting. He looked very weird. He looked as if he is deaf himself or that he is dying. One of the pictures shows this man's face was caved in by his forehead, and it looks very bad, to the point where many in the United States and many anti-Trumpers were celebrating that Trump is dying or that he's going to be dying soon. However, friends, Trump eventually resurfaced and he basically reappeared into the media and he began to talk, basically throwing hints that he went nowhere and that many were calling for his demise and so on, and basically playing it off as if he is so healthy and people are just immature. Whatever the case may be, when Trump came back into the limelight, he began to do all kinds of stuff, okay? One being that Donald Trump sent naval vessel towards the coast of Venezuela, threatening Venezuela. Donald Trump has accused the Venezuelan president Nicolas Maduro and members of his cabinet, of his government, as drug smugglers. And also, Donald Trump has increased the bounty on Venezuelan president's head to $50 million, basically calling for anyone who has information of Maduro, where he might be, and also anyone who is going to take him out. That is very much bad, immature, stupid, irresponsible, and illegal. But this is not anything new. The United States went to war against Iraq, an illegal, unjust war. The United States propagated, basically pushed the situation in Libya, which led to the death, the murder of Muammar Gaddafi. Hillary Clinton, then Secretary of State, made a statement. We came, we saw, he died. Over time, I have watched American leaders boldly propagate, boldly talk about killing this leader, killing that person in this or that country without any remorse, not caring about anything. The fact that Western leaders and government will always propagate the assassination of other leaders in government or the wiping out, the overthrowing of other leaders in government. It is very bad, and I think the rest of the world needs to begin to stand up to the West and put the West in its place. It is illegal. It is irresponsible. It is also, I think, racialized. When you are calling for the death of other leaders and the destruction of other countries and government, you must see yourself as better than them. You must see yourself as superior to them. And friends, this is what the West has been exerting over other governments and leaders around the world, and it is what the United States is demonstrating towards Venezuela. It is wrong that Donald Trump, United States, is calling for the killing, the assassination, or the ousting of another president, another leader around the world. The legal issues surrounding this and the bombing of a boat along the coast of Venezuela is being talked about throughout the media in the United States. Donald Trump is going after the leader of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, calling him a narco terrorist, that he is a drug dealer. And Donald Trump basically has designated or declared member of Venezuelan government and the president as terrorist. There are many who are saying that by the United States doing that, it basically make it legal as far as the United States sees it to go after these people that the United States continue to demonize. Okay, because once you call them terrorists, once you declare them to be terrorists, you can go after them however you want, whenever you want, because in this case, it becomes a security issue to the United States. But let's be honest, the United States is the strongest country in the world, or at least it appears to be. No country out there is threatening the United States. The United States continues to threaten itself, and the United States is creating enemies out there, creating situation which then enables the United States to present itself as the figure, okay, the authority to end this situation, to basically alleviate this situation, which the same United States is causing. Now, friends, the United States putting bounty on the head of Venezuelan President Maduro, calling for the assassination or the ousting of Maduro, declaring him and his government terrorist and drug smuggler, is something that the rest of the world, the United Nations, the Global South, needs to condemn, and they need to stand shoulder to shoulder with Maduro and Venezuela and condemn what Donald Trump's United States is doing. It is nothing but escalation and illegality. Now, recently the United States attacked, the Navy bombed a boat along the coast of Venezuela, which the US government, Donald Trump's White House, is claiming to have been a vessel that was occupied by drug smugglers. However, friends, the White House has not declared who was on that boat and has not justified whether the boat was eventually going to come to the United States. And it is being said that the boat was occupied by 11 people who were killed, and they were fishermen, which is bad. Also, it is said that the boat doesn't have the engine capable of reaching the United States. The kind of boat that we are talking about was made to basically operate along the coast of Venezuela or along the coast within the water of any country. Cannot make it to the United States. And also Donald Trump and his White House cannot prove definitely whether the boat was destined for the United States. So this is very interesting. Donald Trump is making trouble out there. You have the same Donald Trump that said that he was going to end the war in Ukraine in 24 to 48 hours. The war is not ending, and Russia is bombing Ukraine. The same Donald Trump went to war against the rest of the world, the trade/tariff war, and he had lost the war. This same Donald Trump is threatening China, and we know what just happened. The Chinese just had a great military parade, very big, large parade, commemorating the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. And we saw the parade, how it was, how decent it was, and we saw that the Chinese basically unveiled some crazy weapons, which in this case, I do believe the United States government and military must ask whether they really want war with China. Yes, I believe that there are many in the United States who want war with China or against China. and they do have their reason. They do believe that they can take on China and that they can defeat China. But we are seeing the Chinese or China continue to get stronger and stronger and stronger. As a result, I believe that the time for the United States to have taken on China and beaten China easily, those days are over. If the United States goes into a war with China right now, I do believe that the Chinese are going to surprise the United States. They are going to humiliate the United States. Now, the situation in the Middle East continues. In just recent times, about a day or two ago now, Israel launched a strike into Qatar. Now, Qatar has been, or is said to have been, one of the countries that has been working on normalizing relations with Israel. One of the countries in the Middle East, despite whatever issue that they may have with Israel or with the United States action, they have been very careful to condemn or to criticize Israel over Gaza or the United States over other issues. But with Qatar being attacked, or with the Israeli launching a strike into Qatar, the Qataris are now calling Israel's action a terrorist action, an illegal action. And countries and leaders around the world seem to be siding with Qatar. That, I believe, doesn't look good for Israel in no way. It makes Israel look like the violator, the aggressor, and it continues to be the same. Okay, it continues to look like this. With all this, Donald Trump, I believe, is having a crazy week, or has been having a crazy week. You have, on the one hand, Donald Trump is escalating with Venezuela, wants to go to war against Venezuela, which there are many who believe that if there is a war with Venezuela, that the Chinese and the Russians are going to help the Venezuelan, which I do believe that could be the case, because Venezuela, yes, it is weaker than Iran, but Venezuela is one of those pieces, one of those chess pieces, which the Russians and the Chinese, for their own security, want to make sure Venezuela is not destroyed or taken over by the United States. For the Chinese, not only it is going to lose a diplomatic allies or partner, an economic partner, should the United States go to war against or defeat Venezuela and occupy Venezuela. The Chinese are going to lose access to Venezuelan oil, which as of now, it is being said by many experts that Venezuela does have the largest reserve of oil, larger than Saudi Arabia. But should the United States goes to war against Venezuela and defeat and take over Venezuela, that basically limits to an extent access to the Chinese and the Russians of a vital allies and resources within the Caribbean. So basically, it seems that the United States is once again trying to turn Latin America into its backyard, as it has been saying with the Monroe Doctrine, which says that, or which said that European colonial power have no business in the Americas, that the Americas is America's or the United States spheres of influence. But let's go back to the issue with Venezuela and the United States. I think the world should condemn Donald Trump basically escalating against Venezuela, declaring the Venezuelan president and the government or officials in the Venezuelan nation as terrorists and or drug smugglers. My question here is, where is the proof, or where are the proof? The United States must prove it. But for what it seems as if this is nothing but just warmongering. The United States wants to go to war against Venezuela, to take over Venezuela, defeat Venezuela, take over Venezuela. But the situation in Venezuela, I believe, also mirrors, or it is replicated by the situation in other Latin American countries, where the white establishment in these countries are proving themselves time over time over time, or time after time after time, to align themselves with the West against their own people in Latin America, in the various Latin American countries. So this is something that societies in these various countries must talk about and try to solve. Because what it does, it provides the United States and the West power, influence within these countries for their own benefit as these countries starve. In terms of the United States and President Trump having a crazy week, Israel striking into Qatar just put Donald Trump's situation, his plan, in jeopardy. Now, Donald Trump not only has to deal with the situation in Gaza, the situation in Latin America with Venezuela, which it is the same United States that is expanding. Now, Donald Trump has to deal with a situation between Israel and Qatar. It is going to be interesting. Perhaps Donald Trump is going to find a very interesting way, crazy way to deal with the situation, or this, as they say, is going to continue to make him get sicker and sicker and sicker. Donald Trump is not healthy. The more this situation happens, the more the situations continue to happen, the more Donald Trump is in jeopardy. Also, in just recent times, we saw a diagram image of a lady-like figure in the Epstein book with breasts, and also where Donald Trump signed his name, right by where the lady pubic should be. It is interesting. Donald Trump is having a hell of a week, or has been having hell of weeks. Perhaps this is why we are seeing the escalation with or against Venezuela. Perhaps this is why we saw Israel striking into Qatar. Perhaps this is why the situation in Ukraine continues. Because I do believe, to an extent, it is seeming as if these situations are happening by human calculation, not by happenstance. Because we have to talk about something rather than talking about the Epstein situation, which continues to expand and expand and expand and make Donald Trump have hell of a week or hell of weeks. Now, friends, please tell me what you think, and I really want to know what you think. But friends, I am going to end here. I want to thank you for being a member of the Echoing Voice community, my friends. But most especially and most importantly, friends, I want to thank you a lot for watching the Echoing Voice. Peace, my friends. Peace.